Hello, today we're going to look at one of the key male protagonists in J.B. Priestley's spellbinding 1945 thriller Inspector Calls. I'm talking, of course, about Mr Birling. Selfish, greedy, stupid. If you wanted to kind of summarise Mr Birling on a bumper sticker, I think those three words would do the job admirably. He is presented as a cipher or a symbol in this play for capitalist values. He is a representative of a value system that Priestley argues places profits before people, money before morality. It's also interesting in this play that Priestley is at such pains to present Mr Birling as a fool. We get, don't we, that delicious dollop of dramatic irony as he confidently predicts World War I won't happen, there'll be no conflict between the unions, and the money shot, he says the Titanic is unsinkable. And of course the effect of this dramatic irony, as I've said, is to present him as a fool. He practically has idiot tattooed across his forehead. And the thing is though, it's necessary for Priestley to present Mr Birling this way in order to promote Priestley's own objective, namely highlighting the values of socialism. How do you make your audience more receptive to the idea that we should put community above the individual? Well, you present the guy who argues the counter-argument, who says that we should put ourselves before the community. You make that representative of the capitalist system as bovine, as stupid as possible. It means that the audience is more receptive to Priestley's left-wing message and less likely to value capitalist ideas as they're presented in this play. So a very clever technique by Priestley, employing that dramatic irony to highlight the flaws in Mr Birling and by extension the capitalist system. His capitalism really shines through in lines like, I'm working for lower costs and higher prices. He never tires of these very long-winded speeches. He's an incredibly pompous man, and I guess that line, lower costs and higher prices, that sums the man up in the sense that his mission is to maximise his profits. And how do you maximise your profits? Well, you do this by keeping your labour costs, the wages you pay to your workers, as low as possible. And that's one of the reasons, of course, why he fires Eva Smith, and thus beginning her downward descent towards that bottle of bleach. Very egotistical man, Mr Birling. I suspect he's the kind of guy who kisses the mirror when he's shaving in the morning, because even his family is an afterthought to him. There's a great line which telegraphs his shockingly selfish, egotistical nature. Mr Birling says, a man has to look out for himself. And his family, of course. And I love the way he blurts out that last bit, and his family, of course. Clearly, his family are very much a secondary consideration. It's also interesting about Mr Birling. The stage directions at the start say that he has a provincial accent. This basically means he has a kind of northern or working class accent. And I think this gives us an insight into Mr Birling's character, because this is how I read this guy. He, unlike Sybil, his wife, Mr Birling made his way up from the working class and through hard work and a bit of nous managed to accrue some money. And so his attitude is thus, well, I worked my way up from nought. What's your excuse for failure? So I'd say he has contempt rather than empathy for his brothers from the working class. And that explains his ruthless capitalistic streak and the lack of humanity he displays towards his workers. I'll just let you drink in that sublime picture which just captures the point I've just made. To add to this bit as well, it's almost in Mr Birling's interests that the government at the time in 1912 operated on very much a laissez-faire system. What this means is that there was no dole, no social security, no NHS. If you lost your job, there was no safety net, you starved. And this very much helps and facilitates people like Mr Birling, so says J.B. Priestley, because people have a choice. They can either starve or take his crummy wages. He, in a sense, has a license to keep wages low, because if the only alternative is starving in the street, most people are going to make the choice and sign up with Mr B, aren't they? J.B. Priestley very cleverly links each member of the Birling family with a biblical sin, a sin from the Bible. Mr Birling's, unsurprisingly, is greed. That blinkered obsession with money blinds him to the plight of the poor, which is why he's happy to pay them a pittance and maximise the profits for himself. Like his wife, Mrs Birling, Mr Birling abides by a very shallow value system. He very much prizes appearance above anything else. And he's very keen to hush up his crimes to avoid a scandal, because of course there's that juicy prospect of a knighthood in the offing, and he doesn't want anything to compromise that. In fact, he makes a point at one stage. He says there's a difference between all this coming out in private and a public scandal. Now Sheila disagrees with this. Their crimes against Eva means that they need to reject their capitalist ways and live more morally. But to Birling, the morality of the matter is irrelevant. What is important to him is to maintain that shallow veneer, that thin shell of respectability. For Mr Birling then, shame doesn't come from within. It's not an existential process. Shame comes from without, from how people see you and judge you. And as long as he's got that squeaky clean, polished façade, the knighthood, the status, the manners, he feels validated. That's enough for him. He'll put manners over morals any day with a whining. And it's no surprise how relieved he is when he finds out that Inspector Gould isn't a real policeman. His guilt in sacking Eva and leading to her death, that's not in doubt. But now he dodges the bullet of a public scandal and the risk of public exposure. And there's a great line of his at the end. He says, "I care," and you think for a second, oh, maybe he's learned his lesson. And he says, "I won't get my knighthood." I'm paraphrasing, of course. So his value system has not changed. In a sense, he's as fixed and selfish and capitalist at the end of the play as he was at the start. This is in stark contrast, of course, with his children. Both Eric and Sheila seem to gravitate towards a more socialist mentality, a prizing of community over the individual. But Mr Birling, there's that phrase, isn't there? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And Mr Birling seems to be too old to absorb this new left-wing, humane message. For him, money will always be the be-all and end-all. And there's a great line he says at the end. He says, "Look, Inspector," this is in Act 3, he says, "I'd give thousands. Yes, thousands." Now, he doesn't finish that line. Obviously, he's saying he has a little germ of regret for what happened to poor Eva Smith. But isn't his use of language interesting there? I'd give thousands. He's still money-orientated. He cannot see past his mercenary values. So, to conclude, Mr Birling is obnoxious. He's almost like a pantomime capitalist. So exaggerated are his features. He's incredibly selfish, he's greedy, he's a fool. And as I've said, he's there to represent capitalist views in a very negative light. And this enables Priestley to promote his socialist message, his counter message, that we need to prize and lionise and protect the community, rather than be absorbed by our baser self-interest. He sacks Eva because of that overweening obsession with wealth, irrespective of who gets hurt. And that, in a nutshell, is Mr Birling.